A new book is out today highlighting former Scotiabank CEO Rick Waugh's journey leading one of Canada's biggest banks and what it's like to run a global bank during a financial crisis and beyond. Let's get more on this from Howard Green himself. He is the author of Gimme, Crisis, the story on Rick Waugh. Howard, thank you very much for joining Bryden and I today to talk a little bit about, talk more about this book. Quite the story.
Thanks so much, fellas, for having me on. It's interesting that you just had Trump and Carney in that little segment beforehand. They're both in the book because in the 80s, when Rick was heading up lending for Scotiabank in New York, he turned Trump down for a loan. And of course, Mark Carney is in the book because he was governor of the central bank, the Bank of Canada, during the financial crisis. And Rick and all the bank CEOs dealt extremely regularly with him. Their longest chapter in the book, actually, the chapter on the global financial crisis in 2008.
This man is a larger than life character, isn't he? In so many ways.
Absolutely.
Bryden, you met him as well, right?
Yeah, just you knew when he was in a room, I would say.
You're exactly right. You know, the arms are waving. There's this big thunderous laugh. He's got huge presence. It goes back to his time in university. It was like that way back when, people said. He was a teller. He came from modest means. His dad was a firefighter in Winnipeg. And Rick seems to have inherited the ability to handle crisis gene. He would deny it at first, but over time, I think I kind of got him to accept my analysis of that after I'd spoken with other people. Look, he was in the middle of unbelievable crises. Before the 2008 crisis was the Argentina crisis in 2001, 2002. We may be heading into yet another one. Argentina has defaulted 9 times since independence. Rick and the bank were in the middle of one of those. They had bought a bank in Argentina, very heavy presence in Latin America and the Caribbean. There's a great history about that going back to the gold business. But they got in trouble in Argentina. You know, the country was breaking down. There were 5 presidents in 13 days. They lost the bank. Money was running out of the country. It was a bank run. You never knew what your money was going to be worth. There were controls on how much you could withdraw. It was absolute chaos. One of the bank employees was mugged, grabbed around the throat. The head of the bank there was detained without counsel, couldn't leave the country. It was a terrifying, burned in effigy. It was a terrifying period. Rick went all through that, handled it with great calm. The Dominican Republic, a year or two later, went through an enormous bank fraud. They're the oldest bank in the Dominican, huge in the Caribbean. 30% of the deposits in the Caribbean are with Scotiabank. They had a bank in Jamaica before they had a bank in Toronto in the late 1800s. So huge presence there. And when there was this enormous fraud in the Dominican, the IMF needed a big, respected global bank to bail out the Dominican Republic. That was Scotiabank. They were the only global bank there, so the job went to them. Rick was also involved in bringing the Raptors to Toronto, making all of those partnerships work. People don't remember, but 30 years ago, Scotiabank had 10% of the Raptors when it started, and they were kind of the hinge and the glue between it. Advancing women in the bank. When Rick started at the bank in 1970, and through probably the first 20 years of his career, women were not allowed on the executive floor of the bank. Women were not permitted to be part of the pension fund of major Canadian banks until the 1960s. Until 1964, if you were a woman, you couldn't get your own bank account without your husband's signature. It's a remarkable period in Canadian banking. And of course, the Canadian banks are an enormous presence in our lives. They irritate a lot of us with their fees and so forth, but they have been a very stable, steady institution and industry in this country, predating Canada itself, going back to the early 1800s.
I have to go back to, what do you think drives Rick? I mean, you've known him for 20 years. And I also want to ask, what was it like trying to put together a story about someone you've known for that long, too?
Yeah, well, I joked with him I had to get the book out fast because he got tired of me asking him questions about his compensation. But which I used to do where you're sitting right now when he used to come on BNN when he was CEO of the bank. But I think what drives him is problem solving. The title "Gimme a Crisis" came right out of his mouth. Rick talks a bit funny, and he will admit that. He thinks it may be neurological, and there are people who say they've collected Rickisms, the funny things that he said. He kind of butchers the English language a bit, but he said, "Howard, I may talk funny, but give me a crisis." He is motivated by solving big problems. If he can figure it out, and he was central during the financial crisis in Canada. The interbank banks lend to each other overnight for their short-term needs. And all around the world, interbank lending was freezing up. The whole financial system ground to a halt. In Canada, banks were still lending, but it was starting to really tighten up. The terms were getting shorter and shorter and shorter. It was hard to fund the banks. And Rick, at one of these meetings with the other bank CEOs, in front of Mark Carney, in front of Jim Flaherty, who was the finance minister, the regulator, so they wouldn't be accused of cooking something up, did it in front of the political and regulatory authorities. Look, I trust you guys. If you lend to me, I'll lend to you. And they all agreed, and that solved a huge problem during the financial crisis because Canadian banks were still operating. They were still profitable through the crisis. It was very, very difficult. It was hour by hour. It was day by day. But they came through as the soundest banks in the world. Okay. And, as I said, Bank of Montreal started in 1817, Scotiabank 1832. They predate Confederation. And banking was actually written into the original Canadian Constitution, the BNA Act. Very different than the United States, which had a more Jeffersonian model.
All right, Bryden, Howard, we want to get in one more question for Bryden. We're almost out of time. I hate to interrupt, but Bryden wants to get in one more. I know you could. We just want to get one more in here.
One question I had, Howard, was that you talked about his humble background, and then obviously having such a long record with so many different crises. I'm wondering if there are a couple sort of character traits or themes that you really pulled from Rick that were very consistent, and it seems like he's been probably acting in that problem-solving role for much of his life. But was there a continuity to that came out through some of the experiences that you put into the book?
Great question. He wants to be with people. He wants to be on the ground. He wants to be in the room. He wants to be around a round table. He said, Zoom is great, like what we're doing now, but there's nothing like a round table getting everybody in the room when there's a problem that you have to solve. He's not big on algorithms. He's not big on AI. He is big on management by walking around. And after 43 years at Scotiabank, he knew just about everybody, not only at the bank, but in customers, competitors, global bankers around the world. He was in the room when major things happened, and that's why that's in the title. And he loves to be in the room because when you look at people across the table, he says you get the body language. During the financial crisis, he said he knew something was up. People were nervous in the room. Global bankers, he said, called up his treasurer, Bob Brooks, who's since passed away, and he said, Bob, I don't know what's going on, but make sure we got lots of liquidity, because he knew something bad was going to happen.
Okay. On that note, next time we'll have you up here at a round table.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Howard, thanks very much for talking about the book. We appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
Howard Green is the author of Gimme a Crisis, the story of Scotiabank CEO Rick Waugh.